Yep, gonna tear out the Bridgertons. Bridgerton is a show in the Regency era on Netflix, adapted from a series of books by the author Julia Quinn. The show was originally in 2020 into 2021, and season 2 is back to set our souls on fire. You burn for me. I burn. The books follow the lives of the 8 Bridgerton children who are named in alphabetical order from E to H, and each level primarily focuses on one Bridgerton sibling and their significant other, whereby the show features and gives backstories to all the characters to add intrigue to the show as well as build a premise for upcoming plots. I have my trusty tier ranking system, and my very advanced ranking system is as follows. We have the Coal of the Last Fire, which is a play on Diamond of the First Water. This book is at the bottom of the ranks, the last pick of the season. We do not care. Then we have the Smith Quartet. Ooh, that's a tongue twister. This is a yearly recital that happens in the book where the people are musicians but they can't play music, but people still attend because they're polite. So you'll read books in this category if you're a polite person, okay? Not because you want to, but just to be polite. Then we have the Fluke and I, which is a play on the Duke and I, the first book that sets off this series. This book is a fluke. It's accidentally good, as in you like it by chance. I was really struggling for these category names, but it's a book you don't hate, you don't love, it's very neutral. Then we have Not Any Less Worthy of Love. These books aren't exactly God tier, but they're not any less worthy of love. And then we have The Incomparable. This is Tomorrow's Treasure, the season's best, the Diamond of the First Water. This book is what you need to read to be that girl. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into it. So this is the book that started off. I don't feel like I need to go into detail with this book because once you watch the show, you basically read the series plus more, but there are little details that are expounded on in the book that the show just glosses over. Like I rewatched season 1 to prepare for season 2, and I saw that Simon sent flowers to Mama Bridgerton as well as to Daphne. In the book, she got emotional because she hadn't received flowers since her husband died a decade earlier. Like that's so romantic and thoughtful, and it had me hooked. I liked his relationship with Anthony in this book. I liked his playfulness with Hyacinth, which is a younger sibling, and I really liked his banter with Daphne. But there are a lot of things about this book I didn't like. I didn't like the disconnect. Like why was there so much miscommunication? Of course, I didn't like the whole consent scene. In the show, it seems like she did it purposefully, whereby in the book he was drunk and it was kind of like a spur of the moment thing. But like both times were unnecessary because 1, she didn't even get pregnant because of it. So what was the point? And then 2, like she never really faced any consequences for her actions. I didn't like that. So this book just got demoted because of that. Like I really enjoyed like at least the first 2/3 of the book, but thereafter it was a no from me. I'm really gonna have to give The Duke and I. This is my Smith Quartet, like, and like I'm really just being polite because it's the start of the series, but The Duke and I is
more like the puke and vibe.
There's nothing in here. I didn't like Anthony in season 1, I didn't like him in book 1, but in the Viscount Who Loved Me, baby, I loved you too. Anthony Bridgerton is the eldest Bridgerton who becomes Viscount when his father passes away. His father seems to have passed away from an anaphylactic reaction to bee sting. He had an allergic reaction to bee sting and he died. So I'll save you spoilers because this is what season 2 is supposed to be about. I don't want to ruin it for anyone. But just for a little context, because Anthony is so aware of his mortality, he just basically wants to find a wife that he could have children with, but he doesn't want to fall in love with her because he thinks he's gonna die young. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. So we see in season 1 of Bridgerton that Anthony's in love with an opera singer. The book didn't make it seem like it was such an intense relationship, essentially between a nobleman and someone of a lower class. And I'm really not sure why they did that because that's basically Benedict's story in his upcoming book. So I really look forward to see in the show how they rectify or repeat or disregard that for Benedict's sake. Because he already feels like he's just Anthony 2.0. But I have to say, like, while I really did love Kate, and I think this book, I love both main characters the most. Personally, I love a good enemies to friends trope. But the person who stole this book was really Anthony. Like, I really admire how he took on the responsibility of the Viscounty, and even more so how he really stepped up into the role as father for his siblings, whereby sometimes he may have just wanted to be brother. I swoon! And I think why this book really resonated with me, that whole concept of someone dying young and you thinking that you're gonna die young too, especially when you hold that person in such high regard, that's a real thing. You become so convinced of your mortality. And like I just felt Anthony, you know, I feel like I understood him, and I never understand men. So like this book was really good. There are also a lot of relationships in this book that I really like. I really like Kate's relationship with her sister and her mother. I love their dog. I love them playing that croquet Pall Mall game. That was such a fun read. I love Colin in this book. Like in this book you really grew to see why Colin is such a fan favorite. But again, I'm an Anthony simp because Anthony has a scene where he kind of helps Penelope confront her bully, another scene where he helps Kate confront her fears. Oh my gosh, I am a sap! And then we see from the casting of the show that they've changed the names from the Sheffields to the Sharmas. And I personally love the racial diversity of the show. I can't wait to see what they do for the other love interests moving forward. But all that said, I think you guys can tell that this book is Tomorrow's Treasure. The Diamonds of the First Water. Yeah, this book is for sure the incomparable. Like nothing could compare. It's matchless. It's magnificent. It's that girl. Purr. Next we have An Offer from a Gentleman. It's basically a Cinderella retelling, and I, Julia Quinn, love a good Cinderella story. This book is Benedict's book, but I didn't like it for Benedict Bridgerton. I kind of liked it for his partner Sophie, but really and truly I love this book for Mama Bridgerton, Miss Violet Bridgerton. I know there are 8 books for the 8 children, but it was in this book I came to realize that Mama Bridgerton is the main character. Like these books are about her and her love for her children. But anyway, it's Benedict's book, so let's talk about it. So Sophie is a bastard child of an earl. He takes her in and acts as her guardian, but he doesn't acknowledge that he's her father. He passes away and leaves her in the hands of his new wife, her stepmother, and her stepsisters. One stepsister hates her, the other is kind of her friend. Anyway, there's a masquerade ball hosted by the Bridgertons, and Sophie sneaks away with the help of the servants in the house who love her, and she meets Benedict, and it's a, you know, love at first sight kind of story. We see Colin featured here again. I love his humor. And then she has to leave. She leaves behind a glove. Benedict holds onto it and he searches for her for years. They eventually meet again, but she's lost a little weight. She's changed her hair, so he doesn't remember her, but she recognizes him. And I mean, I don't even give him wrong, because if anything with this pandemic, I don't recognize people with their mask. Pandemic! Okay? I really wanted to love this book because I love fairy tales, but Benedict was annoying. Like, oh, I'm the second son, I'm so sad, woe is me. Shut up and go and paint, okay? And then like he just kept insisting that she be his mistress throughout the book because he's a nobleman and she's just a servant. So I don't know, it was just like very disrespectful and just very awkward, and it was kind of gross. I will not lie though, there was a point in this book, I can't remember if I actually cried, but there were tears in my eyes. It was a little monologue, I think, Sophie to Benedict, just explaining like why she can't be a mistress and why she can't have a child of wedlock because of all the pain that she endured as a child. Like that was really touching to me, and that's the only reason this book will go into the Smythe Smith quartet. Sophie saved the day, and of course Mama Bridgerton.
All the rumors are true, yeah.
So if you didn't notice, I'm here in yellow because yellow is a happy color and a happy girl snares husband. I'm a happy girl, and you, dear viewer, you're an eligible bachelor. Subscribe. So Romance and Mr. Bridgerton is Colin and Penelope's book. I love Colin, and we've also seen little snippets of Penelope being Eloise's best friend in the other books. I wanted so much in this book, and I see a lot of people having this as one of their favorite books, but I was literally so disappointed. Don't get me wrong, I love a good unrequited love becomes returned. Who didn't want to fall in love with their brother's best friend or with their best friend's brother? I mean, it's kind of cute. It seems so forced and so unnatural. Like, I felt like Colin loved food more than he loved Penelope. He kept being in awe that he was finding her attractive. And I'm like, why? Is it because she's fat? Is it because she's pleasantly plump? Are you fat phobic? It's so clear in the books that Penelope is supposed to serve the role as a duff, and so because of that, she's supposed to be a spinster. She's supposed to stay single. Like, why? Who would be interested in her? And that rubbed me the wrong way. And I mean, we all know by now that Penelope is Lady Whistledown. Yeah, the show revealed it in season 1. But it's like how Colin found out she was Lady Whistledown. It was kind of anticlimactic, and then he then wanted to reveal to everyone that she was Lady Whistledown because she was being blackmailed by someone else. And I was like, how dare you, first of all, try to reveal my secrets? And also, he was jealous of her for being Lady Whistledown because her papers were published and like he had nothing to show for himself. And I was like, one, you being jealous of your partner's success, but then two, also like it just didn't fit Colin's character. He was like the easygoing, fun-loving, like great brother, favorite character. Like, now you're making him kind of gross and nasty. I don't like it. I don't know. I think that was like a missed opportunity. This is what I envision. Hear me out. So because of the Bridgertons' social influence and their success, they could easily sway the tongue. It could start off with one person saying, I'm Lady Whistledown, and the next person, I'm Lady Whistledown, and until everyone in the room essentially admits to being Lady Whistledown, and we have a bunch of false confessions. So we'd really never know who Lady Whistledown is, because this town is a town that loves to gossip, and Lady Whistledown is merely a pen for the people's voice. Can you not see it? I had too many expectations for this book, and it disappointed me in every way. If you're a BTS fan, you know, like, once you gym in, you can't gym out. Well, with Colin, I'm gonna have to call out.
The number you dialed is not a service.
This is the call of the last fire. Like, this was not a good book. I did not enjoy it, and I will never gaze my eyes upon it ever again.
Tale as old as time.
This book is a hot mess, but I'm a person, I thrive on organized chaos. Eloise, who is a fan favorite, is essentially jealous of her duff best friend, Penelope. She always thought that they would be sister spinsters together, and so because they're not, she decides to run away to a man who was writing letters to her for over a year and did not tell her that he had 2 kids. Boy, why on? Tell me that we've been corresponding for a year, and you didn't tell me you have 2 children? Sir Phillip Crane is a widower whose wife, Marina, who's actually a cousin to the Bridgertons and not the Featheringtons, she attempts to unalive herself and she eventually succumbs, and so Eloise sends condolences to him when they eventually get to 8 seasons of the show, because if it's one person who can get to 8 seasons of a show, it is Miss Shonda Rhimes. I wanted him to find a different love interest for Eloise because I love Eloise and I wanted her to simply have better. That being said, Phillip Crane is a very difficult character to love. He's a botanist, he's kind of distant from his children, and I feel like he has issues sympathizing with the depression that Marina faced. I don't know if this show kind of put this in my head. She was affianced to George Crane, which was Philip's brother, and he died, and so Philip kind of took up the mantle and married her instead. So I don't know if she was depressed because he had died. I wondered if the children were actually George's children and not Philip's, or if it was that she really was prone to melancholy her entire life. It's not romantic for Eloise to run away. I didn't like that. I think it's also stupid and unsafe and a poor decision on her part, but I guess we do things when we're emotionally charged. And there was a point where Eloise was saying that she didn't really appreciate how the marriage is going, and Philip kind of downplayed her emotions because he had a worse marriage with Marina, so how dare she say that this marriage is not a good one. But that being said, I really love this book. It reminds me of Beauty and the Beast, and I told you guys I love fairy tales. I sympathize with Philip because I think he wanted to be a good father, but he just didn't know how. Ultimately, like, he just didn't want to screw up his kids the way he felt his dad screwed him up. I think that's very not reasonable because you gotta show up for your kids, but it's understandable in that, have you never not embarked on something because you thought that you'd do a poor job at it. My favorite part of this book is when the four brothers came to the house and they were like, oh, you dishonored my sister, and like it was a big fight, and I thought that that'll make for some really good TV. But one thing I didn't like about this book was when all the guys were together, the brothers and Phillip, and they were talking about a tavern wench, which is like a waitress, and she was well endowed, she had like big boobs, and they were essentially saying like, you know, they can look but they can't touch, they're married but they're not blind. Like, I don't know who the author thought would enjoy that, but Julia Quinn, you can Julia quit. So with that being said, does Sir Phillip with love? It's not perfect, but that doesn't mean it's any less worthy of love. Just to remind us, season 1 was a black guy and a white woman. Season 2 is a white guy and a South Asian Indian woman. Season 3, if it is Bridgerton and Sophie, I'm really hoping that they don't make Sophie, because she's a bastard, I'm really hoping they don't make her a mixed black woman. I really don't want her to be a mixed black woman. Okay, Shonda, and then well, Colin, Penelope, they're both white. Sir Phillip and Eloise, they're both white. So that's, if we're keeping up, that's what it is.
I think it's time for a grand cheese roundup.
Why do people like this book so much? Is it because of the raunchy scenes? Like, guys, you naughty, you wicked. Don't get me wrong, I really like Francesca's story and her struggle with infertility. That was expounded on more in the second epilogue's book. But I felt for Francesca. And like, did you know that Francesca was actually in season 1 of Bridgerton?
Francesca, oh, it's so wonderful to see you.
Just zoomed out of the series. But I guess it also applies to the books, so she's not really mentioned in the books because she's off in Scotland with her first husband. So in this book, Francesca is married to John and they love each other. It's a marriage of love, and John dies. Francesca finds out that she's pregnant, but then she has a miscarriage. Now we have her husband's cousin, Michael, who has been in love with Francesca since the first day he met her, which was like 2 days before her and John's wedding. Because he's the closest living male relative, all John's titles, his lands, etc., they are now passed on to Michael. So he now becomes, I think it's the Earl. Michael, like, he's in love with Francesca. He lives in his guilt that he somehow caused this, and even though he inherits the land and the title, he doesn't want to inherit Francesca as well, even though he loves her. So what does he do? He runs away. And so he goes off to India for a while. Francesca takes care of the holdings. He comes back and they essentially fall in love. Like, they have a lot of guilt about loving each other because, oh my gosh, like what would John say? Oh my goodness. But somehow they reach the conclusion that this is what John would have wanted. Like, I hate when people speak on behalf of the dead. You don't know they're dead. It's a cute story. Like, I love when longtime crushes get the girl, guys, the friend zone, so state of mind. It's a nice story about finding love again, and like, you could have two different loves, but they can both be very valid and very meaningful. I do wonder how they are going to combine these stories, because Colin's, Eloise's, and Francesca's story kind of all take place at the same time. So I wonder if whenever they have a season, if they're going to make it a longer season, so instead of like 8 episodes, it'll be like 12 or 16 episodes to try and cover them all. But Shonda, you know I have the ideas. I will say I found this book ended abruptly. Francesca wanted to get remarried because she wanted children, but we never found out if she had any children. But I like how the book ended with John's mother. So she speaks to her nephew, who is now Francesca's husband, and she tells him, "Thank you, Michael, for letting my son love her first." I have goosebumps even now. I found that to be so endearing and really sweet. But to be quite frank, or to be quite Francesca, this book wasn't that interesting. I can definitely see the Kilmartins becoming the Kims if they want to introduce like an East Asian family. But this book, I don't hate it, I don't love it. So it's gonna go into the fluke and I. It's neutral.
Shine bright like a diamond.
This is the 7th book and it stars the last child, Hyacinth Bridgerton. I really wanted to love this book because hashtag youngest siblings club. But I don't know, I love Hyacinth, I love Garrett, who's her love interest, and I love Lady Danbury, who is Garrett's maternal grandmother. And Garrett is a rake who is estranged from his father. Julia Quinn really loves her characters to have daddy issues. But what happens in this book is that Garrett's elder brother dies. Yo, Julia Quinn, everybody has to have someone die as well. Wow.
That's suspicious.
His older brother dies and leaves him a diary that belongs to his paternal grandmother. It's written in Italian and Hyacinth knows a bit of Italian, so she offers to translate it. In the book, they found out that there are diamonds hidden in the house that his father lives in. The book is kind of like a heist to try and see if they can find the diamonds. In the end, obviously they get together and it's their daughter that ends up finding the jewels. And then she puts them back. She puts them back. I'm going to put this book into the garbage. But your saving grace is the feistiness of Lady Danbury, one of my favorite characters in this entire series, and the spunk of Hyacinth, and then Garrett's ability to keep up with them both. One thing I found ridiculous with this book though, Julia Quinn, talk to me girl. In books 1 to 4 you would have the letters by Lady Whistledown as the precursor to each chapter. After we found out that Penelope's Whistledown, book 5 are the letters between Eloise and Sir Phillip, so they would have those before each chapter. In book 6, because Michael went and ran away to India, we would have the letters that he would send back home and back and forth. But in book 7, Julia Quinn really decided to say, I'm just gonna narrate. So the book would start off as the chapter in which our heroine is in distress. I'm like, what?
What was the reason?
But this book follows the same as Francesca's. I didn't didn't hate it. I liked it a lot, but I didn't love it. So you're gonna go into the Phillip and I.
Well, I'm the wedding crasher.
This is the last book of the octology, and it features Gregory Bridgerton, who's the youngest son, and his love interest, Lucinda, or La 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 Lucy. This book is for people who like drama, and I'm one of those people. Gregory is a romantic because he's seen all his siblings get married, and they got married for love, and so he too wants to fall in love. So he goes to this party that's hosted by Anthony and Kate. He meets Hermione, who he's convinced that he's in love with, and Lucy kind of wants to set Hermione up with Gregory, but what ends up happening is that Lucy ends up liking Gregory, and Gregory ends up falling for Lucy as well. Julia Quinn clearly has a pattern when it comes to her books. Anthony pursues Kate's sister but falls in love with Kate. Gregory pursues Lucy's best friend but falls in love with Lucy. Somebody is sick in Benedict's book, in Eloise's book, in Francesca's book. Philip marries Eloise, who is his dead wife's cousin, and then Michael marries Francesca, who is his dead cousin's wife. Like, what? In this particular book, I found it again similar to Anthony and Kate, so I think that's why I really liked it so much. But it had like a twist. So even though like we cast aside Hermione, Gregory and Lucy can't just get together because Lucy is betrothed to another, and this other is a homosexual. I wish he didn't go through with the marriage because he's gay, and so he knows that he will never love her in that way, but also because like he knew that she was in love with someone else. So I wish that he cried off so that she would have the opportunity to really just go off and be with Gregory. But of course the book ties up all loose ends, and her and Gregory end up getting together in the end anyways. I actually felt like my heart racing with this book. Like I was just anticipating like what's gonna happen next, what are they gonna do next. Like I was actually, the suspense existed in this book. So I really liked it, and I also liked how Gregory and Hyacinth, they're both mentioned in each other's book because they're the younger siblings and kind of far in age from the others. I don't know why it reminded me of me and my brother and us being close as the two last, so I really liked it. So on the way to the wedding, you wished. You're not perfect, but that doesn't mean that you're any less worthy of love. I had to go on and read Happily Ever After, which is this combination of epilogues for each of the previous 8 books, along with an additional novella for Violet Bridgerton, Mama Bridgerton. So when I was reading this, I really said to myself, like, what is the point of this book? This doesn't make no sense. You'll see why. In book 1, the questions that the readers had for Julia Quinn was, what were the letters that Simon's father wrote to him? I have to speak proper English. I have to enunciate for you guys because I'm frustrated. The letters were uninteresting. They were Simon's father, like, sending him letters talking about how the estate was going, how the parishioners were going. Like, what was the point of that? You actually wasted your pen ink, your tippity typing to put it on paper. It was almost Book 2. This was a Pall Mall scene, and again the Pall Mall scenes in the book itself were really good. So I guess it was nice to revisit it, but I feel like you ever watch like an anime, it's like a filler episode. This was like a filler story. Book 3. I like this story, but really because it didn't focus on Benedict. It focused on one of Sophie's stepsisters, the nice one, Posey, and her eventually finding love. They made Posey very man hungry. Like, calm down girl, you ain't gotta be that desperate. But I liked it, it was cute. Book 4, this epilogue focused on Penelope telling Eloise that she was Lady Whistledown because Eloise would have run away by the time Colin revealed that Penelope was Lady Whistledown, so she didn't know. I didn't really like it. I didn't like it because I wanted Eloise to be like, what? You really Whistledown? Or I thought she'd be like, I suspected all along. I needed something else from Eloise. Book 5 would have been Eloise's. Again, this is a filler. What it focused on was one of their children when they got older and she found love. Why nobody asked any questions about Sir Philip with love. An epilogue could have been actually like a prologue and speak about Marina and George Crane. How about that? But then we have number 6, which was Francesca's story. And his entire collection of epilogues was written for the sole purpose of this book because Miss Julia Quinn, she wrote Francesca's book and didn't end the story with us knowing if she eventually got children. And in this book she was able to speak about her infertility and just her being able to share that with her mother and with Eloise, and eventually them being able to conceive and have children, and just the peace that she was able to find in the knowledge of knowing that maybe she wouldn't have children. I have goosebumps speaking about it. This epilogue, it moved me. It was very in touch with what I believe one must feel when they're infertile. It was a beautiful story. Like, this is the only reason the book should have been published. Then the next one would have been Hyacinth's epilogue. She eventually found the jewels. She could have found it in the first book. Okay, she could have found it in the first book. And then Gregory's, him and Lucy, they have like a buttload of children. They have like 9 children. I'm like, why do they have 9 children? Francesca is the one who wanted children. Like, why do they have so much? But anyways, they have a ton of children, and because of that, on their 8th pregnancy, they have twins. They didn't know until the actual birth, and she experiences postpartum hemorrhage, and then they're not knowing if she will live. I think with these kind of books, people typically want to escape from reality, so they always have to have a happy ending. So a part of me knew that she was going to live, but I did also wonder if she was going to die. And I wonder why with Gregory's story there was so much suspense in his actual story and his epilogue, but I really like this epilogue as well. And then the last epilogue, Violet in Bloom, is about Mama Bridgerton, and a very short snippet about her and her husband, how they met as children, and then they met again as teenagers, and then they fell in love, and then they showed where he died. They showed a part where she met a guy, but nothing ever materialized from it, and just kind of ended with her saying that, you know, she didn't need anybody else because she had a children, something along those lines. I need a book. That's what I need from you, from Violet. I need Violet's story. Like, I need it right now. I actually need it yesterday. If you just weigh the odds, I like 3 stories of 9 stories, that's 1/3 of you fail, and therefore you have to build your coal of the last fire. You reside among the ashes. Dust to dust. This was kind of task. I read this book in the span of about 8 days, but I really enjoyed it. I love reading. I think reading is a great way to exercise the mind. I love seeing also adaptations of shows where they kind of bring to life what I had in my mind. I don't know. I really look forward to watching season 2. I'm gonna watch it right now. If you have any other book series that you want me to review or any other video that you would want me to do, just let me know down below. I'm gonna do make these videos based on things that I enjoy, but I also want to make things that you guys enjoy as well. So, still I'm Z-Bats. Until next time, salud.